Welcome to Teraflora Studio, a place where forgotten objects, humble stones, and weathered wood are given a second life beneath the open sky. Here, the garden is not only a space of plants, but also a canvas of stories, where every path, bench, and lantern whispers of patience, care, and imagination. Today's journey is a quiet invitation to see with softer eyes, to notice how driftwood twisted by the sea can become sculpture, how branches fallen from trees can be woven into art, and how old objects, once discarded, can bloom again as rustic treasures. It is not about perfection. It is about presence, about learning to walk slowly among the simple things, and discovering how beauty often hides in what is imperfect. Before we begin, it is important to share something clearly. All of the ideas, the words, and the inspiration you hear in this video have been thoughtfully composed with the assistance of AI technology. This allows us to gather stories and creativity into one flowing narration. Yet what truly matters is not the technology itself, but the way these ideas inspire you to create with your own hands, in your own garden, in your own time. As you listen, let the pace be gentle. Let the imagery unfold like a breeze over leaves, or the trickle of water across stone. Feel free to pause, to imagine, to dream of how these ideas might take root in your own space. And if you find comfort and inspiration here in Teraflora Studio, we warmly invite you to subscribe. Join us in this ongoing journey of rustic beauty and renewal, where every season, every object, and every story is another chance to create something timeless. Look around at what you already have. Sometimes the most forgotten objects carry the seeds of beauty. A broken dresser that once sat quietly in a bedroom can be reborn in the garden. Its drawers pulled open and filled with soil and flowers. The marks of age on its surface no longer tell of wear, but of character, each scratch becoming part of the story it shares with the blooms now spilling from its frame. This is the heart of rustic gardening, finding new life in old things. Imagine stepping outside on a warm afternoon to a corner of your yard where mismatched chairs circle an aged wooden table. Perhaps one chair was rescued from a neighbor's discard pile, another found at a flea market, and another simply too beloved to throw away. Together, they create a cozy nook where imperfection feels intentional, where no two seats look the same but every place at the table feels welcoming. Add a few pots of herbs or flowers on the tabletop, and suddenly it becomes more than furniture. It is a gathering place, alive with scents and colors. Repurposed furniture not only saves money but also gives your garden a sense of soul. An old headboard, instead of being sent to a landfill, can stand proudly as a garden gate. With a few climbing vines weaving through its frame, it transforms into an entryway that feels whimsical and full of memory. Visitors passing through such a gate feel the embrace of creativity before even stepping fully into the garden. The best part is that you don't need to be a skilled carpenter or decorator. A simple coat of weatherproof sealant keeps old wood safe against the rain. A splash of natural oil restores the glow of faded surfaces. Even pieces too damaged for indoor use can shine outdoors, where flaws blend beautifully with nature's irregular shapes. In this way, recycled furniture connects practicality with poetry. It is both functional and symbolic, a reminder that nothing is ever truly finished until we decide it is. By looking at your garden through this lens, every discarded piece becomes a possibility. And when you sit with friends around that table, or pass through the gate made of yesterday's furniture, you'll feel not only the warmth of the sun, but also the satisfaction of having given something a second life. That is the rustic charm, simple, soulful, and deeply human. There is something timeless about the weight of stone beneath your feet. When you step onto a garden path built from nature's own shapes, you feel a quiet grounding, as though each step is rooted in centuries of tradition. Stones carry the memory of rivers and mountains, and when placed thoughtfully in a garden, they bring both structure and serenity. A winding pathway made of flat stones does more than guide your walk. It creates a journey. Each irregular edge, each curve in the path, invites you to slow down and notice the small details along the way. The fragrance of herbs brushing against your leg, the rustle of leaves above, the soft crunch of gravel beneath the heavier stones. Unlike the sharp geometry of concrete, natural stones tell a softer story, one that blends with the rhythm of plants and seasons. Stone benches are another way to weave permanence into your garden. Built by stacking large, sturdy rocks, these simple seats feel both ancient and welcoming. Imagine a quiet corner where you can rest, perhaps with a cup of tea. The stones cool beneath you while greenery wraps gently around. The beauty of a stone seat is that it doesn't feel separate from the earth. It feels like it has always been there, waiting for someone to sit and listen to the hum of nature. For those who crave a touch of artistry, mosaic stepping stones offer endless possibilities. By arranging flat stones of varied shades and shapes, you create a pattern that is both human and natural, a kind of artwork that can be walked upon. The irregularities, instead of flaws, become part of its charm. A visitor may pause, noticing how a gray stone nestles against one of warm beige, or how a darker piece seems to anchor the design like punctuation in a sentence. Working with stones requires no elaborate tools, only patience, imagination, and a willingness to let nature guide the design. They can line the edge of a flower bed, form a boundary around a vegetable patch, or build a stairway on a slope. And because they weather gracefully, these creations only grow more beautiful with time. Moss creeping into their cracks, rain polishing their surfaces. In the end, stones remind us that rustic beauty lies not in perfection but in endurance. They ground us, steady us, and give our gardens a sense of permanence. A quiet, enduring poetry written in the language of earth. Few things bring a garden to life more than the flutter of wings and the cheerful calls of birds. Hanging rustic birdhouses offer not only shelter to these small visitors, but also a sense of story and warmth to your outdoor space. Each birdhouse, whether made from dry branches, driftwood, or even recycled tin cans, becomes a little stage where nature writes its own melody. Picture a simple birdhouse made of twigs and weathered wood, hanging gently from the branch of an old tree. Its rough surface blends seamlessly with the bark, making it feel as though it grew there naturally. You hear the soft tapping of a beak inside as a sparrow explores its new home. Over time, vines may curl around the twine, and moss may gather on the roof, turning it into a tiny cottage that feels alive and evolving. For those who love to repurpose, a tin can or old wooden box can transform into a whimsical birdhouse. With a little paint, a small entrance hole, and a sturdy rope, it becomes a shelter full of charm. The imperfections, the dents, the scratches, the faded colors, only enhance its rustic appeal. Each piece carries history, now extended into a new chapter as a haven for life. Hanging multiple birdhouses together creates a playful harmony. Imagine a tree trunk adorned with houses of different shapes and heights, like a miniature village in the branches. Birds come and go, each choosing their dwelling, and suddenly the garden feels less like a static design and more like a breathing ecosystem. The chorus of chirps becomes part of your mornings, a natural soundtrack to your time outdoors. The practical beauty of rustic birdhouses is that they encourage balance, offering shelter to creatures that in turn help the garden thrive by eating insects and scattering seeds. You don't need elaborate skills to make them. A drill for an entrance hole, some twine for hanging, and scraps of natural or recycled materials are often enough. Each birdhouse is more than a decoration. It is a gesture of welcome. It says to the passing bird, "Stay a while, build your nest here." And in doing so, it turns your rustic garden into a sanctuary, not just for you, but for the many small lives that remind us daily of the beauty in simplicity. every fallen branch, there is a line drawn by nature, curved, twisted, imperfect, yet full of expression. When gathered and shaped into sculptures, these humble fragments become something greater, turning your garden into a gallery where art and wilderness meet. Rustic branch sculptures carry no polish, no artificial shine, only the raw elegance of nature itself. Imagine a circular frame woven from branches, set against the backdrop of a stone wall. At first, it looks like a wreath too large for any door, but as ivy slowly claims it and moss settles into its crevices, it begins to resemble an ancient relic. Visitors pause before it, sensing both simplicity and mystery, as though the piece has been there for centuries. In time, the sculpture will not just decorate your garden, it will merge into it, becoming part of the living landscape. For gardens with more space, tall branch towers bring vertical poetry. They stretch upward, breaking the horizon and drawing the eye toward the sky. Picture such a tower with small lanterns hung delicately within its frame. At dusk, the lanterns glow softly, casting patterns of light through the lattice of branches. The effect is gentle yet dramatic, as though the garden itself has lit a candle for the evening. Abstract forms are equally enchanting. A bundle of twisted branches, arranged near a bed of colorful flowers, adds contrast. Rough against delicate, bare against full bloom. There is no need to follow rigid designs. Let the branches suggest their own shape. Their lines may evoke movement, like wind frozen in time, or the graceful gesture of an arm reaching outward. Creating these sculptures requires little more than patience and twine. The art lies not in perfection but in arrangement, in noticing how one branch bends toward another. Children, too, can join in, adding their own playful touches, perhaps weaving ribbons or hanging tiny jars with candles inside. Over time, your sculptures will weather, and that is part of their beauty. Rain will darken the wood, sun will fade it, and plants may embrace it. Unlike factory-made decor, these pieces age with dignity, deepening their character. They remind us that beauty need not always be permanent, that sometimes the most touching art is that which changes with the seasons, like life itself. There is something primal and comforting about a fire pit. The sight of glowing embers, the warmth of flames, and the soft crackle of wood create a gathering place that feels both ancient and timeless. When built with stones and paired with rustic wooden seating, a fire pit becomes more than just a feature in the garden. It becomes the heart of it, a corner where people naturally come together. Picture a circle of rough stones stacked patiently into a sturdy ring. No two pieces are exactly alike, yet together they form a shape that feels whole. Around it, wooden logs stand upright as stools, their bark still rough, their scent earthy and familiar. As dusk settles, the fire pit comes alive, its light bouncing across stone surfaces and wood grains, painting the garden in warm tones. Friends and family gather here, stories unfolding as sparks rise toward the night sky. A rectangular fire pit with a simple wooden frame above offers a different charm. Smoke drifts upward, curling lazily through the beams, carrying with it the smell of pine or oak. The combination of wood and stone is striking. Stone grounding the fire, wood framing the space, each material playing its part in the rustic harmony. Add a few potted plants around the edges, and the scene softens, the fire's intensity balanced by greenery. Driftwood benches or reclaimed planks can also encircle a fire pit, bringing texture and history to the scene. The weathered look of wood set against the permanence of stone creates a dialogue between time and element. This is where quiet evenings stretch into hours, where the chill of night air is forgotten in the warmth of firelight. Building such a corner doesn't require perfection. Even a handful of stones placed in a rough circle can become a working fire pit. The beauty lies in its imperfection, in knowing that it was made by hand, with materials close at hand, with care rather than luxury. Safety comes first, of course. Clear the area of dry leaves, keep water nearby, and let the fire burn gently. Over time, this corner will collect memories. The laughter of gatherings, the glow of marshmallows toasting, the stillness of solitary nights spent staring into the flames. It will become a place not just of warmth, but of connection, to nature, to others, and to the quiet rhythm of life. When the sun slips away and the garden begins to darken, lighting becomes the quiet magic that transforms the space. Rustic lighting is not about overpowering brightness. It is about gentle glows, soft shadows, and the warmth of handmade touches. It is the art of creating atmosphere, turning an ordinary evening outdoors into something memorable. Imagine a row of jars, each holding a small candle, suspended by twine from the branches of a tree. As dusk falls, they flicker alive, swaying gently in the breeze, their light casting moving patterns across leaves and grass. The air feels hushed, as though the garden itself is whispering. This is the kind of simple beauty that rustic lighting brings. No wires, no harsh glare, only warmth born of fire and glass. A driftwood archway fitted with small solar lights offers another vision. By day, it looks like a natural sculpture. By night, it becomes a gateway of light. The gentle glow follows the shape of the wood, guiding footsteps along a stone path. Each step feels part of a quiet procession, a walk not just through a garden but through a mood, through a story told softly in shadows and glow. Recycled bottles, often overlooked, can be turned into charming lanterns. Lined along the edge of a garden bed, they catch the flame of candles inside, their glass reflecting and scattering the light in unexpected ways. Green glass throws a mossy hue, amber glows golden, clear glass shines pure. Together they form a row of colors that seems to dance on the ground. The beauty of rustic lighting lies not only in its visual charm but also in its practicality. Many of these lights are solar-powered or candlelit, requiring little energy yet offering immense effect. They are inexpensive, accessible, and forgiving. Each jar, each branch, each bottle is unique, so there is no need for uniformity. The imperfections are what make them glow with character. When you sit in the garden under this light, the world feels different. Conversations grow softer, time slows, and even the smallest detail, the sound of night insects, the shimmer of leaves, feels heightened. Rustic lighting reminds us that it doesn't take much to create enchantment. Sometimes, all it takes is a jar, a flame, and the willingness to see beauty in simplicity. Every piece of driftwood carries a history, a journey shaped by water, sun, and time. Its weathered lines and hollowed curves whisper of rivers and seas long gone, making it one of the most poetic materials you can bring into your garden. When transformed into planters, driftwood becomes more than an ornament. It becomes a living sculpture where nature continues to write its story. Picture a large hollowed branch of driftwood lying across the soil, its crevices filled with clusters of succulents. Their vivid greens and plump forms stand in contrast to the pale, worn surface of the wood. The planter looks as though it had grown there naturally, a collaboration between earth and water that has finally come to rest in your garden. Each morning, dew settles into the cracks, shimmering like tiny jewels before the sun lifts them away. In smaller arrangements, driftwood can host air plants or mosses, which need little soil and thrive in minimal spaces. Imagine a cluster of driftwood planters arranged together on a rustic table, each one unique in size and shape, like a family of sculptures. The irregular lines of the wood echo the irregularity of the plants, creating a harmony that feels effortless. Guests will pause here, drawn not just by the plants themselves but by the artistry of their frames. Driftwood planters are especially forgiving. No symmetry required, no perfect shapes. The plants find their place naturally, spilling from cracks, climbing over edges, or settling into hollow spaces. Over time, as moss begins to creep in and vines softly drape over the wood, the planters grow more alive, blurring the line between what is decoration and what is simply part of the land. Creating them is simple. Choose a piece of driftwood that speaks to you, curved, twisted, or hollowed, and gently fill its cavities with soil and plants. Succulents, air plants, and moss are ideal, needing little water and thriving in the protective contours of the wood. Each planter becomes an experiment, a chance to see how nature chooses to embrace the material. The result is an art form that changes with time. Unlike store-bought pots, driftwood planters are never static. They age, weather, and evolve just as the plants within them do. In this way, they remind us of the beauty in impermanence, the elegance of letting nature shape the final design. Gardens are living poems, and each season writes a new verse. Adding seasonal rustic touches is a way of letting your garden breathe with the rhythm of the year, always familiar, yet always fresh. The beauty lies not in sweeping changes, but in small gestures. Pumpkins scattered in autumn, pine cones glowing in winter, flowers bursting in spring. Each addition blends seamlessly into the rustic core of stone, wood, and recycled treasures. In autumn, the garden takes on a golden tone. Imagine driftwood sculptures standing quietly among fallen leaves, their twisted shapes paired with bright orange pumpkins. The air feels crisp, carrying the scent of earth and distant fires. Even a simple arrangement of branches in a pot, tied loosely with twine, can evoke harvest warmth. These touches don't need grandeur. Their power lies in their honesty, their closeness to the land. Winter invites a slower kind of beauty. A cluster of recycled metal lanterns filled with pine cones and small candles brings glow to the stillness. The bare branches of trees frame the flickering lights, each flame a reminder that warmth is never far, even in the coldest months. Snow or frost, when it comes, only deepens the magic, glistening on wood and stone, turning the garden into a quiet sanctuary of light and silence. Then comes spring, and with it, an awakening. Driftwood planters burst with fresh blooms, tulips, daisies, or wildflowers, while lightweight garlands of shells or fabric sway from branches. The colors are tender, playful, and full of promise. It feels as though the garden itself is stretching, shaking off the cold, and smiling again. Walking through such a space, you sense both renewal and continuity, the old elements blending effortlessly with the new. Summer is the season of fullness. Breezy fabrics tied between branches create shade, while shells and simple wooden ornaments add lightness. The stone paths feel warm beneath your feet, and the garden hums with life. Bees among flowers, birds in the trees, laughter at the table. Here, the rustic charm is not just decoration but atmosphere, a celebration of being outdoors. Seasonal rustic touches remind us that change is not something to resist but something to embrace. By adapting with the year, your garden tells a story that never grows stale. Each season brings its own mood, its own palette, and by honoring it, you keep your space alive, ever welcoming and endlessly surprising. The sound of water changes everything. Even the smallest trickle turns a still garden into a place of movement, rhythm, and peace. Stone water features are perhaps the most timeless way to invite this element into your space, blending the permanence of rock with the gentle flow of water. Together, they create a harmony that feels both ancient and intimate. Imagine a modest fountain built from flat stones stacked in a careful tier. The water slips from one level to the next, falling softly, never rushing, always steady. The stones darken as they grow wet, their colors deepened and polished by the stream. Birds come to drink, insects pause at the edges, and you find yourself drawn again and again to its calming sound, like a quiet heartbeat in the background of your garden. A pond, lined with natural stones, offers another kind of magic. Place a driftwood arch across it, and suddenly it becomes more than water. It becomes a scene. The reflection of sky and leaf shimmers across its surface, while frogs, dragonflies, and butterflies turn it into a tiny ecosystem. It is no longer just decoration, but a living world, one that changes daily with the rhythm of the seasons. Even in small gardens, a stone water feature can be transformative. A simple corner setup, a handful of stones arranged in a tier, a hidden pump to keep the flow alive, that is all it takes. Add a few potted plants around it, and the feature blends into the setting, never shouting for attention, only whispering gently to those who pass nearby. What makes these features so special is not perfection but presence. The stones, irregular and textured, do not hide their age. The water, always moving, teaches patience and calm. Together, they invite stillness, a place to pause in a busy day, a reminder that nature does not hurry, and yet everything is done. Building a stone water feature is not only practical but soulful. It requires only a few materials and a willingness to listen to what looks right, what feels steady. Over time, as moss creeps in and roots spread nearby, the feature will seem less like something you built and more like something that has always belonged. That is the quiet poetry of stone and water, working hand in hand to bring peace into your garden. A garden path is more than a way to walk. It is a story of how you arrive, where you pause, and how you feel along the way. Adding recycled accents to these pathways is like scattering memories beneath your feet, each step carrying fragments of life once forgotten, but now beautifully reborn. Imagine a pathway where broken ceramic tiles, once destined for waste, are given new life. Their pieces, irregular and colorful, nestling among natural stones, catching the sunlight in a mosaic that feels both humble and artistic. Each shard has its own history, a cup that once held morning tea, a plate that once carried a meal. Together, they now form a walkway that guides you gently through the garden, transforming the past into something lasting. Along another path, recycled bricks and old clay pots line the way. Some pots lay sideways, filled with soil and tiny creeping plants. Moss grows between the bricks, softening their edges, turning the path into a green, living ribbon. This design does not shout for attention, yet every step brings a smile, as though you are walking not just on stones but through stories, through layers of lives once lived. For a more rustic approach, slices of reclaimed wood can be set into the soil, creating stepping rounds that alternate with pebbles and gravel. The wood, with its rings and cracks, feels warm and familiar underfoot, while the stones add grounding. When sunlight falls across such a path, shadows trace the patterns in the wood, reminding you that time itself has been pressed into its grain. The beauty of recycled garden path accents lies in their honesty. They do not pretend to be new or perfect. Instead, they embrace their wear, their imperfections, and turn them into character. This makes each pathway unique, impossible to duplicate, a true reflection of the hand that shaped it. Creating one requires no special skill, only a willingness to see potential where others see waste. Gather what you have, arrange it with patience, and let nature finish the work, softening edges with moss, brightening corners with flowers. Over time, your path will not just connect one part of the garden to another. It will connect the past with the present, and the ordinary with the extraordinary. Sometimes the simplest materials carry the deepest beauty. Dry branches, scattered across the ground after a storm or left behind by changing seasons, might look ordinary at first glance. Yet in the garden, they can be transformed into works of art, pieces that speak softly of nature's imperfections while adding warmth and charm to your outdoor space. Picture a trellis built entirely from dry branches. Uneven Uneven in shape, tied together with twine, it stands humbly among the plants. Over time, climbing vines weave themselves through the gaps, leaves softening the rough wood until the whole structure feels alive. What began as discarded sticks becomes a living frame, supporting greenery and telling a story of collaboration between hand and earth. In another corner, smaller branches form a low fence around a flower bed. Their tips jut out irregularly, but together they create a border that feels handcrafted and personal. Flowers bloom inside the enclosure, their colors brighter against the simple, rough wood. The fence does not demand attention. It simply holds space, reminding us that even small gestures can give shape and presence to a garden. Dry branches can also become intimate accents. Imagine a group of branch candle holders placed on a stone table, each one holding a tea light. As the sun sets, the flames flicker within the wood, casting shadows across the table and ground. The scent of earth and smoke mingles with the evening air, and the garden shifts into a place of quiet gathering, lit by the glow of simple creation. Working with dry branches requires almost nothing. Just your hands, a bit of twine, maybe a small tool to cut or hollow. They don't ask for polish or precision. Their irregularities are their charm. The more natural they look, the more they blend seamlessly with the garden, as though they have always belonged there. Over time, weather will change them. Sun will bleach them, rain will darken them, moss may creep across their surfaces. But this, too, is part of the art. Dry branch creations are not meant to stay pristine. They are meant to grow old gracefully, side by side with your garden. And in their aging, they remind us that beauty can be found not just in bloom but also in what is bare, weathered, and true. Every material in a rustic garden has its own voice. Stone speaks of permanence, wood whispers of time, branches of growth, and recycled objects of renewal. When you allow these voices to meet, the garden becomes more than a collection of projects. It becomes a conversation, layered and alive, where each element enhances the others in quiet harmony. Imagine a stone pathway guiding your steps toward a driftwood bench. Along the way, small trellises of dry branches hold vines, their tendrils weaving slowly upward. The scene feels balanced, stone grounding the space, wood adding warmth, plants bringing movement. Nothing looks staged, yet everything feels intentional, as though the garden itself designed its own setting. In another corner, a recycled ladder stands as a tiered plant display. Each step holds pots of herbs and flowers, while a border of stones frames the garden bed beside it. A driftwood sculpture rests nearby, twisting in its natural shape, its pale surface contrasting with the deep greens of foliage. Together, these pieces form a vignette of textures, smooth and rough, soft and hard, weathered and new. Visitors might not notice each detail immediately, but they will feel the calm coherence of it all. Combining materials also tells a story about sustainability. A rusted bucket becomes a planter, sitting beside stones arranged into a low wall. A piece of broken furniture finds new life under a climbing vine, while branches woven into arches lead the way toward a small pond. Each material on its own may seem incomplete, but together they form a design that feels whole, as though time and use have shaped it into something greater. The key is balance. Too many stones, and the space feels heavy. Too much wood, and it may seem fragile. But with careful placement, stone is the foundation, wood is the frame, recycled objects as accents. The garden feels lived in and layered, like a home that has grown with patience and care. This kind of design doesn't ask for perfection. It asks for attention. To notice how textures meet, how light falls, how colors complement. Over the years, as moss softens stone, wood fades to silver, and recycled objects take on weathered charm, the blend only deepens. It becomes not just a rustic garden, but a sanctuary that feels authentic, timeless, and uniquely yours. There is a quiet joy in giving new life to what others might throw away. In a rustic garden, recycled objects become more than decoration. They become stories of renewal, proof that beauty is not lost when something is old or broken. With imagination and care, even the most ordinary items can take on fresh purpose, blending seamlessly into the natural charm of the outdoors. Imagine an old wooden ladder leaning gently against a fence, its rungs no longer meant for climbing, but instead holding potted flowers. Each step becomes a small stage where blooms of different colors and textures can shine. The wood, worn and weathered, tells of its past life, yet now it contributes to the growth of new life. A simple piece of furniture has been reborn as a vertical garden, practical and poetic at once. Nearby, a cracked teapot sits on a stone wall. Instead of being discarded, it cradles soil and flowers, its spout and handle framing the blossoms in a whimsical way. This little planter brings a smile, reminding you that imperfection can be playful, even charming. The break in the ceramic is no longer a flaw but a feature, a mark of resilience that makes the piece feel one of a kind. A broken wooden chair, stripped of its seat, can cradle a lush arrangement of plants. Place it in a shady corner, and greenery will spill through its frame, turning what was once useless into something quietly captivating. Each recycled object carries this kind of magic, an ability to surprise, to turn expectations upside down, to remind us that nothing is ever truly finished until we stop imagining what it can be. This practice is not only creative but also kind to the earth. By recycling objects, we reduce waste and honor the materials already around us. The rustic garden thrives on this philosophy, that beauty grows from humility, and charm often comes from what is worn, imperfect, or forgotten. Walking through such a garden, you see more than plants and structures. You see a collection of second chances, each recycled piece woven into a new life, each one telling its own story. Together, they create a space that feels authentic, sustainable, and filled with character, reminding us gently that renewal is always possible. Every garden benefits from a place where the eye can rest, a focal point that gives shape to the space and invites you to linger. In a rustic garden, focal points are not polished statues or grand fountains, but natural or handmade elements that feel like they belong. They become anchors in the landscape, drawing attention gently rather than demanding it. Imagine walking along a stone path that winds between flower beds. At its end stands a tall driftwood sculpture, weathered by sun and rain, twisting skyward like a piece of frozen motion. Around its base, small flowers bloom, their colors soft against the pale, textured wood. The sculpture feels less like something placed there and more like something discovered, as though it had always waited at the garden's edge to be found. In another setting, a stacked stone column rises quietly from the grass. Its surfaces are irregular, its shape imperfect, but moss has begun to creep across it, softening its edges. The column does not overwhelm the space. It simply exists, steady and calm, offering a vertical counterpoint to the garden's horizontal lines. Visitors pause as they pass, drawn by its grounded presence. For a more playful approach, recycled objects can become focal points. Picture an old wooden crate repurposed into a plant display, placed in the center of a seating area. Its layers of pots spill over with green leaves and blooms, bringing life into the heart of the garden. The crate, worn from use, adds history and warmth, turning a simple piece of furniture into a centerpiece that tells a story. The beauty of rustic focal points lies in their flexibility. They can shift with the seasons. A sculpture wrapped in garlands for summer, a column lit with lanterns for winter, a crate refreshed with new plants in spring. Nothing is fixed. Everything evolves. This makes the garden dynamic, always offering something new to discover, always telling a slightly different story with each visit. A well-chosen focal point doesn't dominate, it harmonizes. It provides a pause for the eyes and a sense of orientation for the space. And most importantly, it feels authentic, born not from excess but from thoughtfulness. In this way, rustic focal points remind us that true beauty lies not in grandeur but in the quiet power of presence. Driftwood carries with it the spirit of journeys. Once shaped by waves, sun, and time, it arrives in our hands as something raw yet graceful. In the garden, it becomes more than decoration. It is a storyteller, a sculptural presence that adds both mystery and warmth to rustic design. Each piece is unique, as though nature carved it by hand, leaving us to decide how best to give it a home. Imagine stepping into a garden through an archway built of driftwood. The wood twists and curves overhead, intertwined with vines that climb and flower with the seasons. Passing through feels almost ceremonial, as if you are entering a storybook world. Guests pause, touched by the unexpected magic, their eyes drawn upward to where nature and craft blend seamlessly. In the heart of a flower bed, a single piece of driftwood can serve as a sculpture. Its gnarled shape rises among the blossoms, contrasting with their softness, anchoring the colors with its quiet strength. Over time, moss may gather along its crevices, and birds may perch on its branches, making it not just art but part of the living garden. The beauty of driftwood lies in this evolution. It becomes richer the longer it stands outdoors. Even smaller pieces hold charm. Picture rustic garden signs made from weathered planks of driftwood, hand-painted with simple words: herbs, welcome, wildflowers. Hung from posts or propped against stones, they guide visitors with a warmth no factory-made sign could ever match. Each letter, each stroke of paint, feels personal, carrying the marks of both nature and the human hand. What makes driftwood so special is its versatility. It can be sculpture, structure, or detail. It requires no polishing, no perfection. The irregularities are what give it character. In every twist and hollow, there is potential. To hold plants, to frame pathways, to simply stand and be admired. Working with driftwood is less about control and more about respect. You do not force it into shape, you listen to what it already is. Place it where it feels at home, where its lines echo the shapes around it, and it will transform the space with its quiet dignity. In this way, driftwood reminds us that rustic beauty is not made but found, waiting patiently in the simple gifts nature offers.